Another one of the guidelines is the audit considerations for irregularities, again effective September 1st, 2008. Of course, again, these were guidelines that helped provide the auditor with a means for understanding what they should be looking at should they come across any type of irregularities or illegal acts that are happening as the course of their audit. Again, it's guidelines for considerations on reporting and handling those things. Another guideline for audit sampling, effective August 1st, 2008, provides guidelines for what might be an effective sample of information that you're auditing. How much of it, how you should come about getting the information, what you should be looking for. And remember, sampling is one of those things we do when we are confronted with a large amount of information. We know we can't just look at all of it, but we can take little pieces of it and try to glean what it's all like based on those samples. And so it's guidelines about how to go through conducting that type of an audit. Effect of pervasive IS controls. This was effective August 1st, 2008. Now, of course, this means that we're looking at ways to, guidelines of how to evaluate controls, and not only controls, but even of management's use of or monitoring of these controls. So as you're thinking about putting your audit together, I'm hoping you're seeing that these guidelines are designed in helping you come up with an effective and hopefully a professional way at going through and doing these audits so that you can, basically justify a lot of the techniques that you might choose to use based on the guidelines that you're seeing here. Another one of the guidelines is under the category of organizational relationship and independence. Now, this was effective August 1st, 2008. And what we're saying here, of course, is that we need to look at the management structure and the ability of me as an auditor to be truly independent through this auditing process. And so that's kind of where we're looking at the management and the authority that they have over the people doing the independent auditing, and whether or not there's any breakdown there that we have to deal with that's causing us to maybe not have the independence that we need. Again, guidelines for how you might deal with that, or to report it, or to work with it. Use of risk assessment and audit planning. All right, again, here effective August 1st, 2008. Now, there is some things you have to think about when it comes to risk assessment. That's can be used in a lot of different areas. We're talking about the risk assessment and audit planning. So what are we really saying? Well, there is a risk in doing audits. Now, this isn't saying risk assessment of a database, but going with your audits. In other words, if you're not thorough with your auditing, if your plan didn't show the type of thoroughness that you need, and you missed information, or you didn't gather enough information to come up with the right conclusions, there is some risk associated with those bad conclusions. And so these are guidelines for hopefully helping you avoid that type of situation. Application Systems Review, effective October 1st, 2008. And as it sounds, of course, here we're talking about applications that are running and the controls that we use to protect them. So again, guidelines about ways in which you can look at the plan for how you're going to do an audit of an application, of course, depending on how it's being used by the organization and of the controls that are working with this application. We have guidelines to help you in the times when you might have to revise the planning. It's called Planning Revised. It was effective May 1st, 2010, and that's what it's about, is to, during the course of your planned audit, if something has been discovered or found that may call for a revision in the plan, guidelines about how to go through that process. Effect of third parties on organizations' IT controls, which is effective March 1st, 2009. Here, the guidelines are going to talk about your involvement in doing the audit to reach certain, of course, the ISACA standards and COVID, and being able to do evaluations of third parties that are working with the organization that you're auditing, and their effect based on your standards of the audit. The next one is the effect of non-audit role on the IS auditors. All right, so what's a non-audit role? A non-audit role is a person who's not a part of the auditing team. Generally, these are issues where we are talking about upper management, almost what I like to call C-levels, the CEOs, CIOs, CFOs, those types of folks. And of course, they have an effect on your job as an auditor. Your job is to stay independent. and they can have an effect that can take away some of that independence that you need. And so these are guidelines about how to deal with those situations and maybe ways to plan around those types of issues if they come up. The guideline on IT governance, effective May 1st, 2010, is just what it sounds like. It's your planning of how to go about doing the audit of those folks that are basically running the show. The Enterprise Resource Planning, ERP, is a process that we would go through in trying to, of course, look at ways in which we have the effective resources to be able to work with our auditing section. The next guideline is on the business to consumers e-commerce review, what they call the B2C. And of course, there are guidelines about the use of e-commerce when it comes from your organization and its customers or clients. Internet banking guidelines, effective August 1st, 2003, which are, again, ways of giving you guidance about the process of auditing those organizations that might have internet banking. The review of virtual private networks, effective July 1st, 2004. As it sounds, we're talking about generally the encrypted IPsec VPNs and ways of giving you guidelines about looking at their effectiveness of how they're being used for secure communications. Mobile computing, effective September 1st, 2004. Now, of course, think about when that was effective. Back then, mobile computing was mostly dealing with laptops. We didn't really have we had a PDA market, but we don't certainly have a lot of the same mobile computing we do now. But we can still use those guidelines in helping us in the process of doing the evaluations and audits. Post-implementation review, effective January 1st, 2005. So this kind of comes after the audit's been done, after your reports have been turned in, after your recommendations have been done, and guidelines about the process you would go through to basically review to see if some of those recommendations or if any of those recommendations have been implemented. General consideration on the use of the internet, effective March 1st, 2006. Now, okay, this is probably a very controversial area when it comes to doing a lot of auditing, which is just what it sounds like. What are the expectations of the organization, the rules that they set out, or any other guidelines that you need in determining what is acceptable or non-acceptable use of the internet from those people that are involved in the organization, at least while on the organization's property. Responsibility, authority, and accountability. These guidelines, again, are designed to help you in being able to plan and come up with the agreements about the responsibilities and the authorities and who you report to through the auditing process. Follow-up activities, effective March 1st, 2006, designed kind of like the post-implementation review, is a way of being able to review and be accountable for any activities that needed to be done after certain points of your audit. Biometrics controls. Okay, this one effective February 1st, 2007. Here we're getting into parts of authentication type of controls. Biometrics are going to be, fingerprints, iris scans, those types of things that we use for authentication. When we are reviewing them, there's a lot of information about biometrics. So again, guidelines to follow. And you might think of things like false positives and false negatives, and basically saying it authenticated somebody it shouldn't, or it didn't authenticate somebody that it should. This crossover error rate that they have. So again, guidelines about that process. Access controls. So access controls are, again, my means of getting access, whether directly, remotely, but a way of, again, guidelines of doing that evaluation process. One of the other guidelines we have is called IT organizations. That was effective May 1st, 2008. Now, this one's tricky because every IT organization is going to be different. And it's there's not like a cookie-cutter approach to what makes a good and effective IT organization. And so it's going to be difficult when you're going through the audit to really evaluate how effectively or efficiently the organization is running, at least by any other standard of, yesterday I was at this company, that's how they did business, you're doing it differently, I like that way, and that's not what this is about. It's about guidelines to help you achieve results through evaluations to help you determine if the structure that they are using, whatever that structure is, how well is it running efficiently and effectively. Review of security management practices. Okay, so here, this is a guideline of basically being able to look at the way in which the IT organization is currently conducting security, managing security, their practices, and whether or not those are sufficient or meeting whatever the objectives are. Return on security investment, effective May 1st, 2010, is a guideline in the evaluation of a control. In other words, if we're looking at auditing some of the controls, we have to ask ourselves, based on the cost of the control, the cost of operating it, training the people working with it, we need to find a way to be able to evaluate its effectiveness and how it's doing, so that we can report back whether it was a good investment, maybe too much of an investment, or whatever the case might be. Continuous assurance, another guideline that was active May 1st, 2010. Now, this is an ongoing process. It's a way of making recommendations, a guideline of the recommendations you make that a corporation or organization would use to continue to give them the assurance that controls are working the way they should after you're done and gone with the audit.